Hey guys, welcome back to Ponderings from Palm Coast. I have a great guest today, Merrill Shapiro. But before we dive into that, today, as we're taping this, is a federal holiday, Martin Luther King Day. What do you know about Martin Luther King? I challenge you, if your kids are home, while you're sitting there having dinner tonight or with friends, ponder why he has a federal holiday. What was it about Martin Luther King, and how does that apply to us today? And I'll ask you this: how do you think he would feel about what is happening in our United States? Because I find it sad that it feels like we're going backwards in the growth and the humanity of this country that I have defended and served and participated in. So I want you to ponder that today, because it is Martin Luther King. And if you've watched this later in the week, take a look at it. Figure out what it was that made him so powerful. What was his voice? What was his actions? Because if we don't remember the sacrifices and the things that people do during our American history, we're bound to repeat them. And sadly, it feels like if you're in Minneapolis right now, you're reliving a pretty horrendous past. So I want you to take that away. And now, Merrill and I are going to talk local and talk about exciting things that are happening within Palm Coast, within the county, and try to get you. We need you to like and subscribe and help us grow this podcast. We've been doing this now a year, and we've been putting out amazing content with individuals and Conversations in American Democracy and AU, and presented a choice of information for you to ask and get involved. So we're going to continue. We're going to keep growing it. It's such an important next 6-8 months with the upcoming election. I will committed to bringing in as many candidates as I can so that you can learn about them. And there's activities everywhere. Whether you want to stand on a bridge or you want to go and meet Republican candidates, and we'll try to do a much better job of making that stuff available so that you can get off your couch and you can get active and you can become informed. Because then you're a better citizen. Wouldn't you say, Merrill?
I would
An
agree.
informed citizen.
So let's, if I may,
Oh, of course.
inform everyone of the role that Martin Luther King, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., played right here in our area in the St. Augustine in 1964, in June of 1964, and in the weeks leading up to June of 1964. If I can go to the Department of Crass Commercialism, if you go to sajhs.com, the St. Augustine Jewish Historical Society.com, you'll see lots of pictures of Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy and Andrew Young and their activities in St. Augustine that led up to, on June 16th of 1964, the largest mass arrest of rabbis in U.S. history, who were integrating the Monson Hotel. So if you're on the waterfront, just south of Castillo de San Marco, on Avenida Menendez, walk into the property of the Hilton Garden Inn there, and you'll see several plaques honoring Martin Luther King, the steps he stood on when he was arrested and put in the St. John's County Jail. Martin Luther King has a strong connection with our area and our community. People should know about it.
Absolutely.
So we should educate ourselves.
Well, and it's up to you to ask questions. And most of us have this little device in our pocket which has access to a plethora of things. It's for my wife. And to educate yourself. And also be aware that you need to verify your sources and go several places to confirm what is and isn't. But it's up to you.
Yeah. By the way, please do not check your critical thinking skills at the door when you go search the web. You need to look at it all critically. But if our parents or grandparents were to come back today and say, how is life different? You would reach into your pocket and say, I have access to all the knowledge in the entire world right here in my pocket. Make use of it.
Absolutely. Correctly and with a critical view. So I've been pondering something and I'm going to put it out there and I'm very curious.
Sure.
In connecting the dots, Merrill, you're in the Publix parking lot. You're in your car. You're looking for a spot. We've all been there. And we know how dramatic the Publix parking lots are. A young man, 18 years of age, in the state of Florida, which it looks like he's going to be given the right to own an unpermitted, because permits are required, pistol in his pocket. And you're driving your car and you're trying to find a parking spot and he's walking in the middle of the road. You tap your horn, you scare him, he turns around, pulls his gun and shoots you dead. Who's at fault? How does the state of Florida see that? I bring that up because we just had tragedy up in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, in which there was a sad event where someone lost their life. And I thought, how would that look or feel in Florida? So Publix allows weapons in their store. So that assumes that people walking in the parking lot are armed. But we also have a citizens, which is our age, that are not very focused, and we're driving down the middle of the road looking for a parking place, and we scare an armed individual who then turns around and shoots you dead. Well, in the state of Florida, that would be considered a legal stand your ground action. So think about that a minute. He has the right to own a gun. He has the right to defend himself if he feels threatened. And Merrill, you're in a vehicle, minding your own business, trying to find a parking place. What kind of scenario are we really at today? And I've had some pretty deep conversations with some other people about this. Jim Manfrey being one of them, of the responsibility. And you know what? In the state, he has the pedestrian has no right or responsibility or need to move himself to a safe location. That's insane.
Yep.
So think about that the next time you're in Publix at rush hour trying to find a parking space when people are walking around in the drive, because that's the type of conversations that we need to be having. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, since it's that day, I will rely on Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who said, some are guilty, all are responsible. Okay? And since all of us put our stamp of approval in November when we vote for state legislators who pass stand your ground laws, we're all responsible. We didn't do enough to stop that kind of nonsense. Just as currently the legislature, is considering a bill to allow 18-year-olds once again to buy guns here in the state of Florida. It was 18 after the Parkland massacre at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, and all those young kids who were murdered and others who were injured. The law was changed to raise that to 21. Now, our state representative, Sam Greco, our voice in the Tallahassee, our voice in the Florida House of Representatives, is part of a committee, and he voted to allow the bill to proceed that will allow 18-year-olds to purchase and own guns. In other matters, we talk about the fact that 18-year-olds are not fully formed, are not psychologically responsible for what they do, and that we should go easy on them and so on. So how can we say we want to put guns in the hands of people who really aren't fully developed and aren't responsible? In the end, we sent the wrong people to Tallahassee.
Yeah, and I was actually having that conversation with someone about this very thing, and I posed this question to them. A vehicle can be considered a deadly weapon. Has been, and it has been documented, and in some cases, sadly, it's probably been used. Right. As the guy in Mechanicsville or up in Virginia who ran down all the protesters with his vehicle. How old do you have to be to drive a car?
Yeah, what is it, 16?
16.
Yeah.
So we give a license with some level of training to a 16-year-old to drive a vehicle which we all agree by definition could be considered a deadly weapon, like a gun. Yeah. So I posed this question to a friend of mine in a great conversation we were having. I said, well, I guess based on the logic that 16-year-olds should be allowed to own guns. And he goes, no, that's too young. And I go, well, that's a great response. How do you define too young? Are they too young to get a license and drive a 5,000-pound truck or vehicle around?
Yeah, by the way, I'm going to wind up steering this back to an issue that's near and dear to my heart. We have people, and their names will appear on the ballot in August, who firmly believe that 16, 17, 18-year-olds do not have a sufficiently developed mind to be able to choose what books they read.
Oh, that's true.
Okay, so we're going to choose it for them, and we're going to exclude from school libraries certain books. They don't have the judgment. But can they own guns? Can they drive cars? Yes, that's fine. Can they join the Air Force and learn to fly an F-35? Yes, but we can't let them choose their own books. That's not right.
And it's important, and I try to point out the hypocrisy or the challenges in the decisions of where these ideas come from. And that's where the critical thinking for me comes in, where I go, who wants to control what a kid reads? It's not about what the kid is reading, it's about the control. We all agree that there are certain limits and understandings that we have laws in place to clarify responsibility and other things. Like, for example, going back to the gun thing, when I said to my friend, so can you go buy an automatic gun? Well, no. Well, why? What's the difference between a semi-automatic AK, an high-velocity rifle that's automatic or not, other than the government has mandated that there are restrictions in the type of guns you have. And I'm not hearing anybody trying to fight that rule. So we all are in agreement. Yep. There should be a restriction as to the type of weapons the average citizen should have. Most of us are in agreement. I'm sure there's others. But it's an example of how our elected officials with critical thinking go, I don't want that 18-year-old to have a bazooka or a hand grenade or something, so we're going to have to put some restrictions. And that's what this whole conversation is about. It's about the concept and asking the understanding of what is the right thing to protect citizens. 18-year-old, 21-year-old, Florida doesn't have a permit requirement anymore. So you're telling me that an 18-year-old can go down to Bob's gun shop, fill out the paperwork, and have a semi-automatic 9mm in 3 days with no purpose, no justification, no training, and carry it around.
For those between 18 and 21, not yet, but by the end,
Well,
of,
I'm just
by the
saying.
end of this legislative session, we expect that, yes, an 18-year-old will be able to.
Right. And those are the conversations that you need to go to town halls, go to where your elected officials are speaking. In fact, I think Leanne Pennington has announced she's going to have a town hall for county commissioners February 5th to ask those kind of questions, because that's important. That's critical. You can hear Merrill and I talking on our podcast and getting you to ponder, to consider things in conversations, but it's you. It's you that has to stand in front of that elected official and say, help me understand the value of giving an 18-year-old, in this case, a weapon, or all the other things that they're doing. In a recent conversation, I learned that so far in the first of the month, the Flagler County Sheriff's Department have pulled over retained individuals that they then called on ICE. ICE came and took them away. You have a problem with that, Merrill?
Yes, frankly, I feel we should abolish ICE, first of all, and we don't need it. And they talk about getting rid of the Department of Education. We really don't need a Department of Homeland Security. It's become more dangerous, more difficult, more there to incite negative outcomes, and it's just not worth it. But this is a reflection of, well, maybe the testosterone or the lack of testosterone of certain leaders who want to have these militarized people. I mean, just look at the way ICE agents are dressed to go into civilian populations. They look like they're going into battle, the militarization of the so-called police. And their function is not really policing. And part of the problem is they're there for enforcement of immigration and customs issue, not traffic violations and not who knows what. They don't seem to need a violation. They are a lawless group. And as was pointed out in our Wednesday conversations, everyone's asking, where are the poor boys today? Where are the groypers? Where are the 3%ers? Where are all these right-wing and well, Dr. Joe, I call him because he's got a PhD in cynicism, says, oh, they're all dressed up in ICE uniforms today. You don't have to look for them. And that's
Right.
That's a problem. And to which, as you know, I will then refer you to just go to Wikipedia or any place and Google brown shirts and find out who the brown shirts were in 1933 Germany. And it's exactly the same thing.
Yeah. And the issue that I was pointing out with the sheriff's department in Florida was mandated by our governor. He forced a few, but most volunteered to sign agreements to commit to supporting the ICE efforts throughout the state of Florida. But who's paying for it? You're paying for it. You, the county, Flagler County, are paying our sheriffs to do federal enforcement without clear compensation. They claim that they are going to be compensated, But as we heard, and I want to refrain back to last Wednesday's Conversations in American Democracy. Jim Manfrey was there stating that as the sheriff and the role he had would very hesitantly get involved with federal operations because it's out of their jurisdiction. It's out of their role. It's out of their compensation package for what it is. And I ask you, look at the video, see what's going on in Minneapolis and in other parts of the country. Look for the local sheriff. Do you see sheriffs? Do you see police? You do not. They don't get involved. They step away. And because they don't want to get caught up in the mess of it. So I know we're kind of going all over the place. It's a crazy time, but we're talking about information. We're talking about being informed. We're talking about participation. Now, when we get to the local, which there's a lot going on with the local and the school board and things that are happening there and the expenditures. So let's talk about the local kind of things that are happening now and the things that are going on. Congratulations. Palm Coast just is on the cusp of going roughly $600 million in debt to pass. I think they're going to do bond push or whatever to try to generate money to replace, repair, rework our water systems. There are a bunch of people, I for one, and that have serious questions about the quality and the consistency of the water that we have. Several people have become pretty outspoken in our city council, and it's important for me to remind people to look back at the history. In the last city council meeting, one of the citizens, who by the way is running for city council, was very opinionated, very loud, very boisterous. Passion is what I like, and was asked to leave because of the way she was behaving. And I find that so interesting. And the reason is I've witnessed our sitting mayor, Mayor Mike Norris, do exactly the same thing in the months before he decided to run for election. I applaud his passion. I applaud Jeannie's passion too. But I do find it quite hypocritical that Mayor Mike scolded her for behaving exactly the way he did multiple times in city council, which was probably needed. Probably the previous mayor needed to know the frustration that we all have about things that are happening, but they participate. They take a moment, they go in, they stand in front of the dais, and they say, I don't like whatever. I want the pool open. I want to get the canals fixed. I want public transportation in the city. These are some great conversations that may or may not touch all of us. So locally, I know we were talking about the library, and I know that's kind of passionate with you. What do you think's going to happen with that this budget year?
Well, I think that certain elements in our community, I don't want to be overly political, but are opposed to raising taxes. Even if we all agreed this is worthy reason for us to tax ourselves to make sure we have a quality library, to make sure we have quality schools, to make sure we have quality water. But the word that, tax is a four-letter word in some quarters, and they don't want to touch it when, in fact, they're a useful device to help fund things for the public good, for the public benefit. But beyond taxes, we have to recognize, well, in the area of the military, we recognize we prepare for asymmetrical warfare. And we are engaged in an asymmetrical war as far as paying for infrastructure in our community. On the one hand, are loosely, if at all, organized citizens who have strong feelings and speak out, but are not well organized. On the other hand, you have the community of developers, builders, roofers, drywall people, plumbers, electricians who are building homes and who are funding and supporting the chamber and are part of the Chamber of Commerce. So when we go for significant and meaningful impact fees to pay for our water, to pay for our schools, and so on, the Chamber of Commerce shuts it down, and so on. And the previous superintendent of schools, Kathy Middlestat, lost her job because she wanted robust impact fees to help pay for new schools to take care of all the kids who are going to be moving into all these new neighborhoods. And the Chamber of Commerce said, no, we want to protect our builders. We want to protect our developers. We want to protect our roofers. We want to protect our plumbers. We are against impact fees. So they are well organized. We are not as well organized, our voices are not heard, and thus there's a lack of symmetry here. And until we organize the same way the Chamber of Commerce is organized, we are going to lose every time.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're also battling the needs that we have, for example, here in Palm Coast, is being controlled by Tallahassee.
Yeah.
And we're seeing an erosion or an attack on local control. And it's so ironic that I stand in the city council chambers and even in the county commissioners, the board room, and I hear all of these Republican-leaning elected officials complaining about how Tallahassee is taking away their authority to serve us, the voters that put them in place. So, like we were talking about SB 180, which is a state law that gives, and I'm going to say it very simply, gives the empowerment to the builders and then hence the buyers, the residential owners, the right to do what they want with the land they have. And the city can't do anything about it presently. It's become apparent. There's a lot of conversations in Tallahassee about it now. But at this point, Tallahassee and our governor feel that they know what's best for you, the residents of Palm Coast, or you, the residents of Flagler County. And it's happening everywhere.
You're being too charitable. I think they know what's best for their own campaign accounts.
Whoa.
Okay, they don't care about what's best for Flagler County and for Palm Coast. They want the donations that come from supporting home builders and developers and all these trades that build the homes that are going up all over the place in our community.
Right.
So their interest is in getting reelected, not in serving the public good.
I do find it interesting, and I tend to participate more than most, and I try to bring that to you and pose questions for you to go out and learn and get smarter. And when I hear Flagler County commissioners decide to cut, I think it's over $300,000 from a support group for senior citizens, which has been in effect for over 20 years, and say they're concerned about the possibility of less revenue coming in due to efforts by the state. I'm talking about property tax changes for one. And yet the city of Palm Coast is spending money like wildfire, $3 million for the YMCA and $1.7 million for parking places for a park. I don't get it. I don't understand. How does one group see the sky is falling and the other group is in total naive, oblivious that the possibility, and I believe we're going to see a reduction in the amount of money coming from residential. I don't think it's purposeful. I will admit my tax was less because my house is worth less. I don't know how your house is doing, but the numbers show that in Flagler County and Palm Coast, the overall value of your homes are under threat for a variety of different reasons. Overbuilding, cost of the building, impact fees that they've approved, could be water, could be all the negativity, a lot of things going on. But the large majority of the money that allows our city council and our city to survive and grow comes from residential property taxes, which the county thinks is going to be less, but I don't hear anything from the city about trying to cut back and be more aware of the cost. And yet, I go to the county commissioners meeting months ago, and they write off over $10 million. Now, what that means is there's no way to compensate for the debt, and this has to do with the ambulance service. I don't know if you realize, but our county government provides the physical ambulances that are all over the county and do a great service of being there when you call them. The city provides the people in it, the EMT and those people. And over a 5-year period, the county had over $10 million in unrecouped expenditures for that program. Now that means that most people that use the ambulance service at the worst time of their lives aren't able to pay, or Medicaid or Medicare only pays a fixed rate, and they lost money. So they just said, well, we need to clear the books. So they wrote it off, made it go away, $10 million. More than enough to pay for the library for many years. Really? Were you aware of it? Did you know that that happened? Look it up. Find out what's happening. Get involved. Because I think we're going to see an interesting transition, and it's an election year on top of it. So we have people running for office that are going to have to stand there and try to make that promise that they're going to fix everything and make things all better. And if you live on a canal, we're going to fix the canal. You know, and if you live in a road that needs a speed limit changed, oh my God, how many times have we been talking about the speed limit? Never happening. Merrill?
Yep. Campaign promises are a dime a dozen and rarely worth the paper they're written on. So
absolutely,
people will promise you anything, and then when they get elected, as we see on a national level all the way down to a local level, those campaign promises mean absolutely nothing.
Right.
Yeah.
But I will say, I feel personally, and I've seen evidence to it, that I have more opportunity, more chance to affect the conversation or the decisions at the lowest possible level, city council. In 2025, we had some big wins where the citizens said no to certain businesses coming in, and inevitably the city heard it and they changed their direction. That's why I stay involved at the city level, because I feel like I can affect or at least bring a conversation of hope. And speaking of conversations, I would be remiss to not spend some time and talk about your podcast, Conversations in American Democracy. It's now the first of the year, 2026, a lot going on. You've moved to a new location.
Right.
How's that going?
Okay, I'm reluctant to call it my podcast.
I know
and
you do that,
that
but
was not the intent. And it started out, of course, as a group that discussed matters related to separation of church and state. And then the good people from Suncoast Media, the Rotondos, came along and said, hey, how about turning this into a podcast? And of course, we turned to the National Organization of Americans United for Separation of Church and State. And they, with reason, I presume, said that's not a problem, but before you drop each episode, you have to send it up to Washington and run it by us, and we may take a month to respond. It was foolishness. So we've separated, and it has thus become Conversations in American Democracy. And it's a small group of varying people. We've been larger and smaller. It takes a lot of promotion, and that promotion has not been occurring for a variety of reasons. We look forward to a time when we can, in fact, promote it and bring out more people. However, one of the discussions, and this is separate from the news and politics, is larger better? Is a discussion, and what is the maximum number of people that would be? Now, some people say, hey, it would be great if we had 100 people around tables sitting and discussing. There are others who feel that 10 or 12 is probably an optimum number, so we can argue about that. But it does give everybody a chance to chime in and say what they want, and for other people to react. And usually it's on the news and the political sphere, and we never have enough time, actually, to talk about all the topics that we have. I come in with a list of topics, and we never get to even half of them. So it's exciting. Everyone has an opinion, and some of those opinions, by the way, are more valuable than others, but it's good to listen to know what other people think.
well, as a participant, I've come in and sat in a few. I like the varying differences, if you will, of the views of people and the experiences of what's happening nationally. And that's a great conversation to have. And it's a room full of similar political, for the most part, though all are welcome, I would assume.
Yes.
And yet, we all see it slightly different, and we have conversations. And it's a healthy place and for you to go pull it up wherever you can get your podcast, YouTube or Spotify or wherever you want to, and listen to a variety of very involved people. Sadly, most of us watch too much or pay too much attention to a lot of this, and then present ideas and thoughts about things you may not have thought about, you may not have been aware of. I have those aha moments every time I sit in there and somebody presents a view of thinking that wasn't something that I was even aware of.
Our creed, more or less, is that we are hard and probing and demanding of ideas, and not hard, not demanding, not probing of people. So
Exactly.
people are all welcome. We bring ideas for scrutiny and bat them around, and some agree, some don't agree. That's what makes our world go round.
Yeah, no, it's a very healthy conversation, and I welcome you to participate in watching it and leaving comments and being involved and being aware of the. Unfortunately, I use this as an old adage out of the military. We're being force-fed information, most of which is just misleading, with a fire hose. And it's just more than most people can bear. And a lot of people, I think this is planned, turn off. Even I have to, and I enjoyed the Christmas break. I hope you all did. And I turned a lot of that off. I didn't pay attention to it because it just becomes, as somebody said to me recently, it's like a train going by your house. The first 2 or 3 weeks, you're losing your mind, you're overwhelmed, you can't sleep. Then all of a sudden one day you sleep through the night. You didn't even hear the train squealing and honking and going by. A lot of you guys live up in the Northeast that know that you have trains everywhere, up on lifts or whatever. You become numb to it. You become completely unaware that there's a train going by 20 feet from your bedroom. Don't be that person. Don't. And that's what I get out of conversations, and I welcome all of you to at least tune in and listen to it, because it's like sharpening the blade. You're dull, you're getting duller, you're not aware, you're just 24/7, and you have to step back, and then you go and listen to a room full of other people that present ideas that make you rethink and recharge and get concerned about stuff.
Yeah, clearly there's a certain, beginning to be, I sense, a certain weariness with political discourse in our country. And I mean, I can only look to a recent interview, well, Sunday, yesterday, I guess that was, with Kristi Noem, who's lying. You know, everybody, doesn't she understand that everybody knows that she's lying, and that what was his name, Robinson or whatever, the guy who shot Renee Good was 4 days in the hospital with internal bleeding. I said, nobody believes. And this gives us an opportunity to raise those issues, to speak together. By the way, people welcome people who participate seem to have articulated their welcoming of the opportunity to talk to people who are like-minded, and who, when you say the sky is blue, will not argue with you, as in other conversations in which they say the sky is blue, and people say, no, it's not blue, it's green, or it's yellow, or anything like that. So it's a bunch of like-minded people who get an opportunity to float these ideas and see how everyone feels about it. I haven't published it. One of my, it's a favorite quote, but I don't remember whether it's F. Scott Fitzgerald or Faulkner, that France is a land, and that Britain is a people, but the United States of America is an idea. And that idea needs to be discussed and debated and deliberated, and those are the kinds of things we do on Wednesdays at noontime.
Yeah, and honestly, there's a lot of conversations there that I don't agree with or understand, but I love to listen. I love to be aware when somebody presents an idea or a belief that challenges mine. And that's what I think makes America who we are. It isn't about the negativity or the attack or the challenge or the fear of someone from another country that lives next door and believes different than you. It's the acceptance of that.
Right. So that, again, ideas are welcome, and we're difficult on ideas and probe them and examine them and deal with the problems, topics, and issues that they raise. But people, no matter what kind of crazy ideas, they are always welcome and what they have to say. So this is an expression of American democracy, that everyone's voice is heard, everyone has a voice, everyone's voices and opinions are valuable, and on some things we can come together and agree, on other things we're not going to agree, but that does not change our relationship with the people around us and around the table on Wednesdays. We can disagree mightily with some of our colleagues and still remain friends and still want to engage in the deliberative process with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I carry forth in this podcast, and I know you're doing that. And beyond that, it's something that we so need right now. We need to, as I have a tendency to wear conversational garb, a hat or a shirt or even a pen or something, with the hope that someone would strike up a conversation with me so that I could have a healthy, friendly debate that's not, as a wise man said recently, you want to engage, not enrage. Thanks, Tom, for that. I'll give you credit for that great thing, because that's what made America great. It's not about the attacking of something different. And that's their plan. That was the plan in Germany in the 30s, was to get people angry and with hate. It's not who we are. It's not who I want to be. I'd much rather embrace the differences of everybody I run into and lean down and hold them up and help them become a citizen of the great country. Who would not want to come here and live? How would you fault someone to come to the United States and try to participate in this great capitalistic, or this organization that we have, this government that we have? I think it's amazing.
They're starting to not come.
Yeah.
And that is the sad and the challenge that I was reading recently, where statistically they project that the white race could become a majority, or I'm sorry, a minority group by 2050. And there's nothing we can do to change that.
Well, he's trying. He's trying to grab people off the street and send them back to where they came.
Right. This is what clearly Donald Trump is concerned about, and the people on the right are concerned about, that America should be a white, Christian, nationalist, Anglo-Saxon country, and that all these minorities are diluting, the idea of purity of blood is an anathema to the rest of us, but this is what he wants. But in the end, it's we who elected him. We who chose these people. We who didn't do enough to oppose him. We who didn't stand up and speak for what's right. And so demonstrations, No King's Day, and the visibility issue, and people standing on highway overpasses with signs about Christy Noam or DHS or whatever, are the finest expression of what we believe in. At the same time, there are people who are not so happy with our finest expression of whom we are, and think that just by protesting we are in the wrong and even deserving of arrest or some kind of limitation. That's where we draw the line directly from Mahatma Gandhi to his student, his philosophical and ideological student, Martin Luther King, who we celebrate today, down to the people in Minneapolis today who are working hard to make sure that they're nonviolent, and any violent elements often come from the outside, from provocateurs and agitators who want to create an excuse for sending in federalizing the National Guard or sending in the regular army into the streets of our country, which seemingly no one wants to see.
No, absolutely not.
January 20th, National Day of Strike.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
That's the 1 year anniversary of the beginning of Donald Trump's presidency.
Right.
Absolutely.
So there are many ways for you to be active as a citizen in this country. You can go on websites and find out where people are being active if you choose. But I think it's simpler than that. I want you to talk to your family, talk to your neighbor, reach out to the people closest to you that are in the same location and will be affected by everything, and have a safe conversation about things that are going on. And pose the question. I have friends that are MAGA Republicans, but when I ask them to help me understand why things are happening, so tell me, Bob, why do you think it's important that we have Greenland? And then listen and give that person a chance to defend or explain what he believes, typically from media and other exposure he has, on why that's a good or bad thing. And that's the kind of conversation I believe will help someone who's listening to one source of information, and then when it's presented in a way that in his own mind he responds or changes the way he views, there's benefit to that. As with conversations in American democracy, we have experienced that every time we get together and we change or modify or appreciate our views. So guys, I know we're all over the place today, but it's important because our country is all over the place. But what is important is you need to participate. You need to fight for this country and fight for what you believe and what you think is important. Because we're past the point of you not voting and sitting on the couch and not participating, because that's what got us where we are today.
If I may, yes, those who view this are what powers this democracy. And an interesting sleight of hand has occurred, and it's not widely recognized. But we all need to make great efforts to recognize that next November, we will not be deciding most of the local major offices in our community. We'll be deciding them on August the 18th. That is Tuesday, August the 18th. Is election day for many local offices. And if you expect to go to the polls in November and have something to say about who occupies and what kind of ideas are coming out of local offices, you need to do that on Tuesday, August the 18th. And you need to begin to think now, whether on Tuesday, August the 18th, or in anticipation of Tuesday, August the 18th, you want to vote by mail, or you want to vote in person, or you want to vote early. Those are decisions you need to think about so that come Tuesday, August the 18th here in Flagler County, you are ready to participate in our great democracy. That's Tuesday, if I hadn't said it, Tuesday, August the 18th.
And that's primary.
That's a primary.
Primary.
Well, no, it's not a primary it's called primary day, but it's not a primary for city council or for school board or for many of these offices. It's the only election that will occur, unless there's, in certain offices, no one gets 50% of the vote, then it will go over into November.
Right. But remember, we are a closed state. So if you're registered Democrat or Republican on August 18th, you're only going to be able to vote for the party, unless it's city council, which is a nonpartisan, but that's the only one.
School board as well.
And the school board
as well. Right.
But the takeaway is what Merrill and I are saying. You only have one guaranteed voice, and that's voting. Most of our elections over the past 20 years have been decided by less than the majority, including the 2024 presidential election. Most people, by a slight margin, didn't vote at all, didn't participate. This is undisputed.
In the last off-year election, that is 4 years ago, that we were not voting for president, the primary that decides all these local offices, 33% of the county of registered voters showed up. That means 67% stayed home and didn't even participate in this great democracy from which we all benefit.
And you know the last time that happened? Germany, 1939.
Yeah, right.
The largest group of the German citizens chose not to be aware, participate in the things that were happening in their own country. And then they got touched. Literally.
Yeah. By the way, we are familiar with someone who lost his election in the last primary by 2 votes. So your vote matters. They lost by just 2 votes. And had you voted the other way, it would have changed who occupies that office.
Right.
Everybody needs to vote.
Yeah, exactly.
One couple didn't
Yeah.
get off the couch that day.
Yeah. That's
You
it.
know, if what is going on right now on your radio and on your television and in the world, you have the power, one vote at a time, to get out there. And this isn't a political thing. I don't care which way you vote at this point. I just want you to participate. Because if we don't participate, we won't have a country to vote. There are hundreds of countries that shine a light and hold the United States above all others because of our perception of our voting ability, our chance to speak and put people in power that we want. What happened in Venezuela?
Yeah.
What was the whole drive there? Clearly, the president lost and said, I'm staying in power. What are we hearing from some quarters within our own country? We don't need an election. I don't want you to vote. You don't need to vote. I'm going to take care of you.
Yeah.
So that's how I start and end every conversation is, are you signed up for mail-in ballot? The mail-in ballot raises your chance to remember to vote and gives you a study guide so that you can verify who. And I guarantee you the ballot in November, probably in August, is going to be long with a lot of names, a lot of issues on it. You're going to need to be prepared. You're going to need to be able to sit down with your loved one and go through it and have that conversation. So, register to vote. If you haven't, get your mail-in ballot. Pay attention to conversations. There's some great information there. Ponderings. I'm hoping to bring in more candidates and other people that are so important to what's going on in our county and our city that are volunteering their time. If you have ideas or suggestions, Merrill and I are very excited about any comments that you make, opinions, views. We want to know how to do this better and what your concerns are. Any final thoughts?
Yes, so go to youtube.com/Suncoast Media Services, LLC, and you'll find lots of episodes of both of these podcasts, and Suncoast Media Services deserves a round of applause for all
Absolutely.
that they do to make this possible. So
Right.
thank you.
So we're just one part of a greater source of information for you to be a better citizen and to be more informed. So guys, with that, I want you to stay safe, stay warm. We'll catch you next time. Talk to you later.